Hi, let's look at what happens when separation anxiety feels urgent and progress feels slow. If you're living with a dog who has separation anxiety, you probably feel a tremendous sense of urgency to solve it. And this is due to various reasons, either because you no longer have a social life or because all your plans revolve around your dog's anxiety, or you feel a bit isolated because other people don't understand why your life should revolve around your dog's anxiety. And so all this creates anxiety for you also. So, this urgency to solve your dog's separation anxiety problem usually comes from your own anxiety. But your own anxiety is very often overlooked and it shouldn't. So, it's your anxiety is overlooked, although very often the two mirror each other. So, in other words, your dog's anxiety mirrors yours, and your anxiety mirrors his own anxiety. Okay, so ultimately, you want relief for your dog because it breaks your heart to see them suffer, to know that when you do have to go out, you know exactly how much distress they're in. But the relief is also for yourself, not only that you no longer suffer because your dog is suffering, but also because you want to be able to live a normal life again, just go out and have fun, or even if it's just to go shopping or go for a walk. And you want to be able to do that without having to check the surveillance camera all the time to see what your dog is up to, or looking at the clock, and doing your shopping as quickly as you can. So obviously, when you solve your dog's separation anxiety problem, that brings relief for them and for yourself. So because solving separation anxiety has become urgent for you, and you also desperately want relief for both your dog and yourself, so it's natural that you try to push for fast results. But then, when little progress is made, because usually, as we'll see later in this video, you can't rush the process of solving separation anxiety. So, when you push for fast results, then what is most likely to happen is that you see little progress, like very little progress is made. And so, when that happens, then your confidence starts to drop. That's when you start wondering, am I failing my dog? What am I doing wrong? What am I missing? And of course, you're not failing your dog. You are doing your best so that they can have the best life possible. And so, as your confidence drops, then the need to control the situation increases. In other words, your confidence drops, and then that makes you push again or some more for fast results. And one thing I'd like to make very clear, I don't know you personally, but I'd like to reassure you that if we were sitting together enjoying a cup of tea, I would be telling you what I'm going to tell you next very gently and with absolutely no judgment. I've been working with anxious dogs and their human parents for over 21 years, and I know how both suffer in different ways, but I know how both suffer. And I know that you've probably been criticized or judged or misunderstood before. And so that's why I want you to feel safe watching this video, because there is no judgments at all. So urgency can lead you to rush solutions, as we mentioned, but then that can also lead you to try multiple techniques in quick succession, and then you oscillate between hope and panic. So, it's like going after every shiny object. So you hear of something new, and you want to try it, and you don't give it enough time to work because you're desperate, right? It's urgent for you. So you're rushing, you're trying to rush the solution. So you feel hopeful when you implement something new, and then you see no results after 2 or 3 days. You see no results, and then suddenly you panic again. You lose your motivation and you panic again, like, oh, another thing that isn't working. And so you very quickly go on to the next technique. Now, this is actually going to backfire because solving separation anxiety is about changing your dog's emotional state. It's about teaching them emotional independence. It's about teaching them to feel safe when you're not there. So these are all emotional states, right? Like feeling safe when you're not there is an emotional state. And you can't put pressure on it. You have to give it time. Okay. And so your urgency is your sense of urgency is driving you to not only to try and multiple techniques in quick succession, but also trying to fix the symptoms instead of addressing the root cause. For example, you may think, I just want the barking to stop. Let's say one of the behaviors your dog shows when they're by themselves, when you're not there, is like barking nonstop. And then maybe you've had some neighbor complaints already. And so you when that happens, when somebody complains about your dog's barking, or when you see how desperate they are over the surveillance camera, um, in that moment, you're not thinking, oh, I want to fix the separation anxiety problem. You're thinking, I just want the barking to stop. Okay. Um, and barking is a symptom. So what happens is when you try to fix symptoms, and this is very similar to quick fixes, when you try to fix the symptoms instead of addressing the root cause, that can also backfire in the sense that it will not solve the problem. Think about you getting headaches frequently. Now, your headache might be the symptom of something else. Now, you can either find out what the something else is, what the root cause is, and address it so that you no longer have headaches, and that would be the ideal situation, or you may just take a painkiller for the headache. You just want to fix the headache. And that means that you may need to constantly take painkillers because the root cause of your headaches is still there, and all you're doing is fixing the symptom. And exactly the same thing applies to separation anxiety. Another thing your sense of urgency may lead you to do is you may start looking for quick fixes. You know, something like leaving your dog in a crate, for example, to prevent destruction. Now, it's true that if your dog is crated, they can't destroy, they can't hurt themselves trying to escape and look for you. That is true. But the destruction may indeed stop, but the anxiety itself remains unsolved, you know. So you're looking at the destruction. Again, that's why I said looking for the quick fix is very similar to wanting to fix the symptom only. So you're looking at, I don't want him or her, I don't want them destroying furniture. I don't want them chewing my shoes. I don't want them hurting themselves while they're destroying. We don't know what they're going to tear up and swallow. And so you create them. Okay, fine, I understand that. But then one of the things that happens with separation anxiety is that your dog needs to engage in certain behaviors. We call them safety behaviors. These are behaviors that serve to self-soothe, to bring the anxiety level down. And one of those behaviors is pacing. Now, if your dog is in a crate, on one hand, they can't destroy, they can't hurt themselves, but on the other hand, they can't pace either, which means they can't self-soothe, which means that their anxiety may actually become worse. Another mistake you may be making while trying to solve the problem as soon as possible is to start applying bits and pieces of all the advice that you've received. And you may have received advice from friends whose dog had the same problem, or from the internet, or from different trainers. But then applying bits and pieces of advice here and there doesn't really amount to a structured plan that is tailored to your dog's specific needs. And this is really important. To solve separation anxiety, there has to be a plan, a well-structured plan that follows a logical sequence that starts with a solid foundation, and that requires a multi-layered approach, because every dog is different. For example, some dogs will feel calmer if you leave a piece of clothing with your scent while you're gone. Others can actually get more anxious. The piece of clothing with your scent can trigger anxiety because they can smell you, but they don't know where you are. So they start looking for you around the house, panicking even more because they can smell you, but they can't find you. Okay, so this is just one example to demonstrate how different dogs react differently. And that's why very often trying bits and pieces of information that you get, very often it doesn't work, because one of that piece of information may actually be the wrong one for your dog. So they do need this structured plan that is tailored specifically to their needs. That's why the clients that I have, the first time we meet, I don't start telling them, like giving them guidance right away. Our first meeting serves for me to assess, to diagnose the problem, ask a bunch of questions to find out what is likely to work and what is not likely to work with their dog, so that when I create the plan, it's like 100% tailored to their needs, which means that it is much more likely to be effective and to lead us to success. Okay, so all of these things, like trying to apply bits and pieces of information, going from technique to technique in quick succession, trying to fix the symptom instead of the root cause, looking for the quick fix because you want to fix the problem as quickly as possible. All of these end up applying pressure, external pressure, to an emotional process that actually needs pacing and a progressive approach. So sometimes the faster we go, the slower we end up going. And so I'd like you to think that solving your dog's separation anxiety problem is a process that can't be rushed. You can't rush changing their emotional state. And then when more stress is added, then your dog might not be able to learn at all. When we are solving separation anxiety, we need to do things, or whatever techniques we try should not, under any circumstances, should not apply or add more anxiety or stress to your dog. But then when we're doing the wrong thing and we add stress to them, then they can't learn. An anxious brain, a stressed out brain takes much longer to learn to feel safe when you're not there, and to learn to become emotionally independent from you. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, what can you do instead? And I'm going to share with you some steps that are more likely to set you up for success. So, first of all, keep your final goal in mind, and just like have it really present. I want my dog to feel calm when I leave. I don't want any distraction. I want to be able to go out to dinner. I want to be able to go shopping. I want to be able to have a normal life without worrying about them feeling panicky or totally stressed out or in distress when I'm not there. So that's your final goal. And it's a good thing to have it present. But then don't fixate on the goal, because what happens is if you just keep the big goal in mind, you are likely to miss all the little steps, all the little signs of progress, all the little breakthroughs along the way. Okay, so once you have this goal and you know exactly what you want for your dog and for yourself, then sort of put it aside and start focusing on the small goals, daily, small daily achievements, and that is much more likely to keep you motivated. For example, progress may look as simple as you being able to take a quick shower or a normal shower without your dog panicking. Then I mentioned just a bit earlier the importance of having a step-by-step structured plan in place. So once you have that plan in place, try not to keep searching for other solutions. I know this is really hard, this is what drove us to make all those mistakes. It's urgency is what drove us to make the mistakes. So try not to keep searching for other solutions. If the dog behavior consultant that you're working with or veterinary behaviorist who created the plan, if you feel you can trust them, and this is really important, okay? I always tell my clients, we need to listen to our intuition. Your intuition matters. A professional's job is to assess your dog, to diagnose, make a correct diagnosis, and create an effective plan for their dog. That's our job, which doesn't mean that we shouldn't listen to you. And dog parents know a lot, and they do a lot of good things and right things by intuition. So it's very important that you feel that there's something there between you and the professional you're working with. There's something about them that inspires trust, because then that way you are much more likely to stick to their guidance and not look for other solutions. This is really important, okay? Because when you try to start pulling a bit of information here, let me try this, let me try that, that's when things can go wrong. Just remember that constantly changing strategies can actually, and very often does, slow progress rather than speed it up. Now, let's say new ideas come to mind, either because somebody told you about a certain technique, or because you looked for it, or because you watched a video on YouTube. No matter what it is, if a new idea comes to mind, instead of implementing it, rather speak to the professional dog behavior consultant that you're working with and get their opinion. And like I said, if you feel you can trust them, you should feel safe enough to tell them, look, I saw this, or somebody told me about this. What do you think? Do you think this is something that we could include? Is this something you think might help? And then listen to them. If they say yes, or if they say no, listen to them, okay? And it's also very important not to compare your dog's progress with anyone else's progress. And I know we often do this, like, oh, for how long has your dog had separation anxiety? Or for how long have you been working on it? And that can actually make you lose motivation if you compare your dog's progress with another dog's whose anxiety problem is mild. The truth is, you don't know how severe or mild the other dog's anxiety is. So let's say your dog's anxiety is really severe, and you're comparing them to a dog whose anxiety problem is mild. That is going to be very unfair. It's going to disappoint you unnecessarily. You also don't know how long the human parent has been working on the problem. Let's say you've just started a month ago working with a professional, whereas the other dog parent started 3 months ago. Well, they're more likely to be further ahead. So it doesn't help. Comparing your dog's progress with anybody else's is something that definitely does not help. Now, if you want to know if the pace is normal, like, does it fall within a certain pattern, then the professional dog behavior consultant you're working with is the right person to tell you, yes, I think progress is on schedule, so to speak. But let them be the ones who helped you or who shed some light on whether progress is going at a good pace or not really. And if it's not, then obviously something needs to be changed. Another thing that helps is to keep a simple written record of your dog's progress. This really helps for a few reasons. First of all, it allows you to see improvement more clearly. Our brain functions in a very funny way. Let's say your dog actually went for 6 days without destroying anything, and you're really feeling proud of them and you're really happy with the progress. And then there's one day that they destroyed something. And suddenly, in your mind, in our minds, it's like the 6 days didn't happen at all. Suddenly just focusing on that one day of destruction. So 7 days altogether, six were good ones, no destruction. One day there's destruction, and bam, your brain goes and focuses on the day with destruction. So keeping this written record actually helps you face reality. Now, this is real. Okay, Monday, no distraction. Tuesday, no distraction. Sunday, distraction. But that's real. That's objective. It helps to prevent emotional thinking, and it also helps to prevent all the negative self-talk when progress feels slower than you expected. Like, I've been working, I've been doing everything right, I've been doing everything by the book for 2 months, and progress isn't, well, my dog hasn't made as much progress as I was expecting, so maybe I'm doing something wrong. And again comes the negative self-talk. Maybe I'm failing them. And no, so when something is written, you are confronted with reality. So none of this negative self-talk or negative emotional thinking is likely to happen. Now, I know that very often separation anxiety does take a heavy toll on your own well-being. And very often when we reach out for help, we're at our wits' ends, and we're feeling totally overwhelmed, and we're feeling totally drained and burnt out from the situation. So it wouldn't be fair if I suggested that you keep a very complex record. No, you can think, okay, what behavior can I pick on that will help me determine if my dog is making progress or not? For example, let's say I'll pick destruction. So all you have to do is just write down Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then just put a tick whether there was destruction or not. That's it. The way you set out this record is actually entirely up to you. But the main thing is it should be something that helps you. It shouldn't be something that adds more load or adds more overwhelm. And then finally, consider seeking psychological support for yourself as well. Like, why not? And remember this, the anxiety that your dog's problem has caused you is just as valid as anxiety triggered by any other life situation, and very often we try to navigate this alone, or even if you're working with a professional, the professional is there to help you solve the problem. But what about support for yourself in the process? So I personally think it's very important for you to also seek psychological support for yourself. So with the right guidance and with a structured plan and a willingness to focus on small daily steps and progresses rather than urgent outcomes, this cycle of anxiety, both your dog's anxiety and your anxiety, will gradually give way to something much steadier. And often, and this is the take home message that I'd like to leave you with, very often, the moment that we stop rushing the process is the moment real change begins. It's the moment that your dog goes from destroying things and destroying the sofa to actually feeling calm when you're not there. So I hope you found this video really helpful. If you did, just go down and click on the subscription button. All the information we put out there is related to anxiety and separation anxiety. And so if you would like to enjoy more of our videos, just feel free and subscribe. Take care.